So my pageant journey started in my early 20s. I had the dream to compete in pageantry from the time I was like 7 years old. I remember watching Miss USA, Miss Universe, Miss America, and I just knew I always wanted to do it. And I ended up seeing a girl I went to school with in the local paper who had won a local title, and I was like, why not? I'll do it. So I just jumped in head first and had a great experience. Definitely did not do well, but ended up walking away with just this like sense of self confidence. I at the time was in a director of education at Sylvan Learning Center. I was extremely shy, and anything that has to do with sales, you cannot be shy. And so I was like, how am I in this position? But after the pageant, I ended up being one of the top ranking directors because it helped build this confidence, helped me find my voice. And so I just continued competing on and off for the last 20 years. Most of the time, it was in the one system, United States system. Had a lot of great experiences, a lot of losses, but kept going back. And each year I learned something new. After having my son, I realized that my purpose had to go a little bit further, a little bit deeper, because it was taking away from my family the time I would put into pageantry. And so we ended up moving back to Colorado. So I grew up in Florida, born and raised in the South. And then we ended up moving up back to Colorado for the second time. I knew I wanted to compete because we were in the middle of winter, and wintry seasons and me don't mix very well. So I knew I had to be proactive about my mental health. And so pageantry was the way to do that. So before I said yes, first of all, the Colorado America pageant has always been intimidating to me because the women, they've always had at least like 40 to 60 women compete in the state pageant. That's like a national pageant. And so it was extremely intimidating. So when we moved back, I didn't know if I really wanted to do it. So I ended up making an appointment with Emily, our director, and just talking to her, kind of like I viewed it as like a job opportunity. Like, would we mesh well? Is this going to propel me in the right direction? Does it align with my morals and values and all the things? And it did. And so I entered, and it was simply to just build community and kind of make a home, like have something familiar in my life, since we had just moved again. So I ended up placing third runner up out of like 36 women, which was completely like crazy to me because like I said, I've lost more than I've won. I didn't really place, even in pageants with 10 women, I wouldn't place. And so to go into this pageant, just going in as my fully authentic self and walking away with like, oh, I guess I can do that. So I went back the next 2 years, placed third runner up the second year, and then I ended up placing top 12 the third year. And so after that third time, I was really disappointed, like super disappointed, because I felt this expectation from others and then myself to at least do it as well as I was going to, that I had done in the past. And it didn't happen that way. And I think it was a God moment of him like shaking me like, hey, like, I want you in this, but we got to do something different. And so having that disappointment allowed me to like dig a little deeper. And so I was like, okay, God, if you want me to continue in pageantry, something that I love, then you got to show me, like, is this for me? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start with finding free resources. Obviously, I found Alycia on Win a Pageant, and I started like watching all the videos on YouTube, and then Jumpstart was happening. So I took the Jumpstart. And then there was Win a Pageant Academy. And I was like, well, dang, I don't know if I can afford this. Like, we had moved to Colorado for my husband's job. It's weather dependent, and we haven't had that weather for the last 3 years. But God has our family here for a purpose and a reason. And I knew like everything that's just aligned, everything is just, even if it hasn't looked well good on the outside, we're supposed to be here. And so I was like, okay, God, I want to do this. This is going to get me different results. This is going to dig deeper, because at the end of the day, the crown should not be your only reason for competing. And again, as a wife and a mother and a business owner, I can't just compete to compete. I need there to be a reason bigger than myself. And so after 20 years of competing, I've never had full sponsorship. This year I had 100% sponsorship. And from that sponsorship, I was able to pay for 50% of the academy, because I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to put it on a credit card. I'm just going to believe and trust that you're going to help me make every monthly payment. And he has, and he's fulfilled his end of the deal. So when I walked into pageant week, I was like, okay, God, win or not win, I'm here because you put me here. And ended up placing second runner up, tied, four-way tie for interview, which I felt really good about, and ended up winning a photogenic award. And so, no, I didn't walk away with the title, but I was like, okay, God, you've shown up in every way that I've asked you to. You've solidified that this is where you have me. And I walked away not I mean, obviously, it's a disappointment that you don't win, right? But I walked away knowing, okay, I see it. I know why those women won. And Trinity can attest to this because it's hard to say, oh, like I didn't have that. Like I was a good contender for that title, but I didn't have that. And I just need that. I need that little bit, that legacy project to put me over the edge. So, uh, needless to say, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I have a plan. I've been working with Trinity on my legacy project called Girlfriends Give. On my Instagram, it's called Girlfriends Give Collective, and essentially, it was a dream that started in me about 7 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. After having my son Jace, I had struggled with postpartum. Was told at one point, like, that's ridiculous. Like, I don't struggle with that. Like, and so at that point, I kind of just tossed it to the side and put my big girl panties on and just kept moving. And then I finally was diagnosed, and being able to identify and put a name to what I was feeling was this weight of relief. And so in that moment, this pivotal moment, I was like, I don't want any other woman, any other person to feel shame for what they're going through, feel like they are alone and struggle and like they don't have community, like they can't open up. And so Girlfriends Give, the heart of it is really building community, helping women find their voice, connecting through their stories, because we all matter and our stories are meant to be shared. So
Wow. It's so cool. Like, so, I remember when we first connected, and even as I'm sitting here listening to you, I am so drawn in to your voice, Bethany. Like, I really feel like God gives us, and I know, because I know I'm not the only one that's complimented you about the tone and quality of your voice. And I know that God gives us skills that become innate to us, like that. You're like, it's not like I'm trying to like have this soft quality, this drawing quality. It's not like you're making this up, it's just happening. And it's just so cool because I truly believe is going to support the draw of the women that you bring into your legacy project that are looking for a safe place for healing and to be able to tell their stories. And I really feel like your voice is going to be a part of that opportunity that's going to light them up as well, you know? Oh, it's just so cool. I remember when I first was like voice messaging back and forth with you on Instagram, we were trying to decide like, what do you think? Is this a good time? Like I remember because when you joined, your pageant was like,
right around the corner.
yeah, it was like
Yeah.
weeks away,
Yeah.
right? How many weeks did you have? 6 weeks or
Uh, maybe like 5 or 6, something like that.
yeah,
Cause I think I'd already submitted paperwork.
exactly.
And that's usually like a month out. Usually the deadline's usually a month out. And I think it was a couple weeks before that. So about 6 weeks. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh gosh, I got a lot of work to do. What do we do? Like, is
Yeah.
this the right time to start or should I wait till after or whatever, you know? So
Exactly. And we decided that it was a good timing because of exactly what you said, that you were still able to do that much better. But when you stood on stage and saw the women that won, you're like, oh, now I can see the gap. Now I have an understanding of it in a different way
mhm.
that you never would have been able to have you not been. So even if you would have gone to the
Right.
pageant and even if you would have still placed, right, that, do you agree with that? Is that
A
accurate?
1000%, 1000%. Like I said, after, I think that third year, God was like shaking me. And I try not to take, I think every experience is a learning opportunity and you can choose the way that you view it, whether it's negative or positive. And yes, I was hugely negative that third year because I was so disappointed. I was heartbroken. But as I started to come out of that grief and out of that disappointment, God's like, well, what if I want you to do something different? What do I thought I have more for you and I need you to step out and do these other things? Like the plan and purpose I have for you is way bigger than what you're narrowing it down to, right? And so he's opening my eyes to like, okay, I have all of this, you're looking at this. And so I need to shake you up so that you start to look outward in other things and connect to other things and even pray differently, like, so definitely.
Yeah, it's cool. And the length of time that you had was a small amount of time in order
Mhm.
to create an entire legacy
Yes.
project. But the beautiful thing is that now you have all of this extra time to
Mhm.
be able to build a legacy project and be able to gain the proof, be able to gain all of the
Right.
things on the backside of it. And
Yes.
so I just love that you're still leaning into the academy, that you're not like, okay, well, we're done here. I didn't win. No, the vision is still there. The dream is still present. Let's now put in the work that's necessary so that when you show back up on stage, you've got all the pieces to the puzzle.
Right. Well, it's like Shavana said, it's like it goes way beyond, the pageant experience. It extends further out. I had always had a dream of being in women's ministry, and my view of what that looked like was just the church. And over the last few years, being a part of Mrs. Colorado, he's like, "This is the church. This is your ministry. So treat it like that, right?" And just like who was Janet said, it's business too, but it's my calling, like to minister, inspire, encourage women, and you do that through the stories and experiences. So
Yeah. Wow. Well, God has you on an incredible journey right now. And I just love that you are listening, that you're not letting the small things get in the way of the journey, the lifelong journey that he's got you on, that you're just like, yep, okay, that's the next step. You got it, God, let's go, and just
yeah,
kind of leaning into it. Um,
it's definitely been painful a little bit.
yeah, I
The
wanted to ask you
stretching.
about that. Yeah, because it is painful and it's
Yes.
not easy to show up to your pageant feeling somewhat maybe unprepared and then still having to go through with it. But now you're aware, perhaps before you were blissfully unaware, but now all of a
Yeah.
sudden you show up and you were aware. What was that? Talk a bit about that pain.
Well, I think I'd recovered enough, and last year I remember getting nerves, which hadn't happened the previous 2 years. And so anytime that something tried to come in, I was like, nope, you're here for a plan on purpose. And what's interesting, there were a few women, most of the women I'm closely, friends with outside of the pageant, but they were speaking words of life. They're like, if God's called you here, then you're supposed to be here. If you don't win, he hasn't called you to that place. You don't want to be where God hasn't called you. And he had these women like right outside of like the interview room, like speaking those things into me. So that's another thing, like, okay, God, or Bethany, I see. God's like, Bethany, I see you. I want you to know that I'm here with you. So I didn't have to be nervous. I mean, talking on stage is always like that big nerve wracking thing for me. But I know going into this next year, because I'm going to be prepared with all of my proof and plan and all of that, I don't have any reason to be nervous. So,
Yep. Yeah. That's definitely what we try to do. We try to remove the nerves so that you don't have to feel like you're on a roller coaster, but rather
yeah,
you're just floating in, saying what you need to be said, and then floating right away with a crown. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, Bethany, thank you so much for your willingness to be here. And thanks for I want to thank you on behalf of God and the people that he is positioning you to impact. I want to thank you for staying the course and for allowing yourself to go through the pain of development as you do this, because it will pay off. It will pay
Yeah.
off. The Bible says, and Siobhan going to tell us probably where the Bible says this, that we're not to grow weary of doing good.
Yeah.
And it is easy to grow weary of doing good because you do it over and over and over and over. And you're like, but where's the outcome, God? And so it's beautiful that he's been with you every single step of the way and you just keep saying yes. So thank you on behalf of those that you are going to impact and those that you have impacted.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thanks for sharing your story, Bethany. I appreciate you.